was the most important and the revered man ever to come through the Scottish borders. A man whose shrine adjourns the centre of a great British city and is the focal point of that city. You're probably thinking Sir Walter Scott, Scott's Monument in Edinburgh, but no, Scott's Monument is tiny compared to the monument I'm talking about. And the man I'm talking about is St Cuthbert. The most information a lot of people have about St Cuthbert is the fact that at some point he walked from Melrose to Lindisfarne, hence St Cuthbert's Way. But St Cuthbert was a shepherd from Lauderdale, and more specifically from here, Chanelkirk. Chanelkirk derives from Child's Kirk, because the child Cuthbert lived here. This site where I am now is just to the west of Chanelkirk Church, and it's known as Holy Clook Well, and apparently this was the spot where Cuthbert performed baptisms before his move to Melrose. An amazingly forgotten and isolated spot, and it becomes even more forgotten and isolated when you see the riches that are bestowed upon Cuthbert elsewhere in the country. This very, very small, modest monument marks this site in religious terms, which is extremely, extremely sacred and extremely important, but extremely forgotten, and especially forgotten by the people of the Scottish borders. It was right here on these hills, next to the Holy Well, that Cuthbert saw something which changed his life forever, and changed the life of many other people as well. But it was on these lonely, isolated hills in the middle of the 7th century, when Cuthbert was tending his sheep, that he had a vision. A vision sent to him by an angel from heaven of St Aidan, and St Aidan was dying. Now it just so happened at the moment that Cuthbert had this vision, St Aidan really did die. So this drove Cuthbert on a route of religion for the rest of his life. This is the site of old Melrose Abbey. A bit further downstream than the current day Melrose Abbey, and far more ancient. But it was here that Cuthbert really established himself as a monk, and a monk of a high order. He travelled the region from his base in Melrose Abbey, teaching the peasant folk and the farmers all about Christianity and converting them. Cuthbert had inspired so many people with his work here at Melrose Abbey that he was moved, he was promoted to the holiest place in the whole of the British Isles at the time, and that was Lindisfarne, or Holy Island. This is Holy Island, where Cuthbert came to live and work. But first he had to cross the sea to get there. When Cuthbert arrived on this holy place in the 7th century, the holiest place in the British Isles, founded by St Aidan, Cuthbert's reputation quickly grew. He was quickly becoming renowned for performing miracles, and he was very, very swiftly moved to sainthood. But Cuthbert had no desire for fame or riches or power. All he wanted was to live a life of piety and praise God. So he quickly removed himself from Lindisfarne to that tiny little island I've just zoomed in on over there, to live in solitude, so he could devote his whole time to prayers and contemplation, away from the hustle and bustle of monastery life. But Cuthbert wanted more. He wanted more solitude. He wanted to be further away from society. He wanted more poverty. He wanted to completely devote his life to God. So he moved from that small island there next to Lindisfarne right over to the Farne Islands, which are in the distance there. Over on the Farne Islands there, Cuthbert really did live the life of a hermit. But it's ironic because the further he pushed himself away from society, the more poverty he put himself in, the more holy and revered he became within the Christian community. People from all walks of life wanted a piece of this man. His saintlyhood was growing, and because of this, the bishops in Hexham wanted him back. Nearing the end of his life, he came back here to be the Bishop of Lindisfarne, and he did that job to great effect, as would be expected. But when he was reaching the end of his life, Cuthbert wanted to go back to his beloved Farne Islands and live out his days alone. And that's what he did. He went across there and he died. So you're probably thinking, that's it. Okay, he was a saint, he performed a few miracles, it's nothing out of the ordinary for those that day and age, is it? But Cuthbert's death was merely the beginning of his legend. Cuthbert's remains were brought back here to be buried at Lindisfarne Priory. The grave became a place of great pilgrimage. People reported miracles happening at the side of Cuthbert's grave. But as was customary with saints, they were buried for 10 years to let the body rot away, and the bones were exhumed and placed in a shrine above the ground. But after 10 years, when Cuthbert's bones were exhumed from the ground, the monks got a surprise. Cuthbert's body was intact. Absolutely no decomposition had taken place whatsoever. It was almost like he had been buried yesterday. The word of the miracle spread. Cuthbert's saintliness grew and grew. A steady stream of pilgrims was coming in to Lindisfarne Priory on a daily basis to be blessed by the remains of Cuthbert. But all was not quiet on the east coast, because invaders from across the sea, the Vikings, were making their way towards Britain. As the Viking raiders hit these shores, creating absolute terror, raping, stealing, pillaging anything they could get their hands on, killing, murdering anybody who got in their way. The monks could take no chances with their most prized possession, the body of St Cuthbert. So they packed him up in a stone coffin and moved away. For the next 400 or so years, Cuthbert's body was on the wander. They went round the Scottish borders. We know for a fact they went to old Melrose Abbey, but we don't know much else about where they were in Scotland. They ended up at Tilmouth, we know that. Chesterley Street in the north of England is where the coffin ended up. And it lay there for almost 100 years until the move to his final magnificent resting place. Over the hundreds of years that the coffin was on its travel, it was exhumed a good few times, and each time the body was still in a state of perfection. There had been absolutely no decomposition at all. Cuthbert was becoming a powerful symbol of the church. A money drawer. People were coming from miles around to see this and bringing with them wealth and riches. Cuthbert was political as well as religious now that he was dead. But after being at Chesterley Street for 100 years, it was Cuthbert's final resting place, and the place where the remains still are to this day. That was to be his most opulent, his most well known, most powerful, and the thing that propelled him from famous northern saint to worldwide Christian icon. And that place was Durham. Because this magnificent piece of Romanesque architecture is Durham Cathedral. And it was built for one reason, to house the body of St Cuthbert. Cuthbert's body had travelled around the Scottish borders in the north of England for over 300 years, but its final resting place was just on that peninsula up there in the curve of the river. The large Norman cathedral was built a few hundred years later, but it was still designed to house the shrine of St Cuthbert, a place of pilgrimage for pilgrims from all over the world for thousands of years now. In the 1500s, Cuthbert's tomb was the most highly decorated in jewels and gold in the whole of Great Britain. But under the orders of Henry VIII in 1583, Cuthbert's tomb was destroyed. The jewels and gold were all robbed. Cuthbert's body was exhumed and would have been destroyed too. But still, after all those hundreds of years of being dead, the body was intact. This gave Henry's lieutenants a fright. The body was left and buried under the ground, still within Durham Cathedral. Durham Castle and the adjoining cathedral were as much military instalments as they were religious ones, particularly in the war against Scotland. It's ironic that the whole thing was constructed to hold the body of a Scotsman, Cuthbert. I really wanted to film Cuthbert's grave or shrine inside the church as well, but the filming was strictly prohibited. But what I can tell you, it was the closest thing I've ever had to a religious experience. I can't emphasise enough how magnificent a place the inside of Durham Cathedral, and particularly Cuthbert's shrine, are. Even to this day it remains an enormous tourist attraction, drawing thousands and thousands of pilgrims from all over the world every single week in life. I'd urge you to go. It's something you need to experience if you never have already. Not bad for a lowly shepherd boy from the Scottish borders. Just a pity nobody in the borders remembers him. After my journey, I've came back here to Charnelkirk for a bit of quiet contemplation. I've came full circle from the legendary Melrose Abbey to the massively historically, religiously significant island of Lindisfarne, to the power and wealth and the riches of Durham Cathedral, back here to the modest, some might say humble beginnings of Charnelkirk Church in the Lauderdale Hills. It really does amaze me how important a figure Cuthbert was and how forgotten he is in the Scottish borders. There's nothing really to remember him in the Scottish borders. But this is Bethlehem.